Yesterday, I had an interview with Harry, a BookieBashing member that's over £1 million in profit. It was a really good chat. In fact, it was going to be a segment for the Bashcast, but so good I thought I'm just going to release it as a standalone video. Now, Harry is very much an outlier. I'm not suggesting come join BookieBashing, you're going to make £1 million. Of course I'm not. However, he is someone that really gets it, especially those two fundamental concepts. One, focus on the EV and hit that as hard as you can. And secondly, make sure that you have a wide range of strategies in your sports betting portfolio. Now, we don't have a Discord server anymore at BookieBashing, so it might feel a little bit less of a community. And so I hope this interview gets through that big things are possible if you focus and you take action. One of the interesting things I took out of this, in fact, was his profit loss graph since 2018. When firstly, that 2020-2021 period in lockdown, minus £8,000, but recovered from that. And secondly, there is a relationship between the amount of EV that he is taking in any given year and his overall profit. It goes to show, focus on the EV, the profits will take care of themselves. Now, I've known Harry for quite a while, since before BookieBashing, when we were in the same syndicates, hitting various edges at shops. And whilst I haven't worked in a syndicate with him for a long period of time, when he talks, I tend to listen because he's got a lot of experience in this game and he knows what he's talking about. If you have any questions for him, you can put them underneath this video or fire them into tom@bookiebashing.net and I'll be happy to forward them on. It's good to speak to you, Harry, because, it's good to speak to me, because I think on more than one occasion you've been accused of being a burner account of me when talking to people, haven't you?
Yeah, it's always quite funny when you see people online on Twitter criticising something that they don't really know what they're talking about. I think that's maybe modern day 2025.
I saw someone jumped in to defend me, and they were said, "Oh yeah, another burner account of Tom Brownlee." When you looked at that other account, they'd been going since 2010, and they had over 100,000 tweets. So I'm committed to burner accounts, mate. I really am.
It must be a full-time job running all those individual accounts. About
Yeah, no,
25 mobile phones around the place.
Yeah, it's a full-time job. I am distracted from raising my children and running this company and everything. It's just you wouldn't believe it. And like passwords is just a nightmare. I'm running out of them. So if you've got any suggestion, were you on Erling Haaland on Sunday? Manchester City versus Liverpool.
Sadly not. No, to be honest, my betting has probably missed this little purple patch from Haaland. Unfortunately, I'm not being in the right time at the right place in terms of being near better friends.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
On most weekends, and it probably is you can probably tell me, Tom, but it's probably the best DDHH run probably in quite a few years with Haaland doing what he's doing.
Not just Haaland. This season, long term, we tracked over 1,000 bets, double delight, hat-trick heaven at 6% return on investment, which isn't too bad. I think Fred have got a little stingier with their odds over time, and I also think, other than Haaland, they can't believe that anyone's positive expectations, so it is hard. This season, going back to August, we're at 40% return on investment, so 6,000 stakes for £2,400 profit loss. That's for betting, first goal scorer to win £200. Looking at Haaland only, we've had him up 52 times. He's got a 99.4% return on investment. First goal scorer 9 times, double delight 9 times, hat-trick heaven 3 times. So you'll have, for every pound you put on him, you'll have made a pound profit. It is an insane run, and long live Erling Haaland. But someone told me, and I haven't been able to confirm this or not. Someone told me that Betfred have gone £200 max on double delight, hat-trick heaven. Have you heard anything about that?
No, I'm not aware. I'm pretty sure the coupon would still have the £500 box on there. I think it probably still depends on what shop you go into and what member of staff you speak to.
Yeah, that is generally what I've experienced over time. Sometimes you get a member of staff or a manager even that says the limit's X, the limit's Y. What it really means is they're in a bit of a mardy mood. Perhaps the shop's down that week and they don't fancy it, but there's been nothing official come through Betfred. I haven't heard it. Some members mentioned it on YouTube last week.
I've had times before where certain staff have classed DDHH as a form of boost. So they automatically give it £100 credit. You've probably been there where you try and kind of argue against it, but sometimes you're banging your head against a brick wall. So it's easier to take the bet and leave and move on. But
I've had that with they call so many things pushes in Betfred. So you have pushes, which are like essentially the daily £100 max boosts. You have pushes, which is a pushes coupon. You have pushes, which is something they do with the horses at lunchtime. And so I've gone up to place a pushes coupon, and it was like a £300 stake. And they said, "Oh no, maximum 100 on this." And you know it's not true, and you kind of know that they're confusing it with the boost, which is £100 max. But how much do you pop your head over the parapet and fight it, and how much do you just move on? You know?
Yeah, in the long run, it's probably a negative EV strategy to make a fuss. It's probably your best leaving and just cracking on with your day.
Exactly that, because there's enough out there to be getting on with. You are over £1 million in profit from your sports betting. Now, some people might say this and they go, "Oh, how long have you been doing it for?" Because you look like you could have been doing it for, I don't know, anywhere between 10 to 20 years, Harry. And so maybe some might argue, well, 50 grand a year. But that £1 million is really from the last sort of 7, 8, 9 years. I know that your numbers are realistic because you and me have known each other since before Bookie Bashing, from syndicates from back in those shop coupon days, haven't we?
Yeah, it's been a good while, isn't it?
But what I need to know is what happened in 2020. If I run through your last 5 years profits in 2025, it's still not finished yet, but 180,000 in 2025. Last year, 194,000. So you got a chance of beating last year. 2023, well done, 305,000. 2022, 166,000. And then the 2021 you've lumped into one row in this sheet that I'm looking at in front of me. Minus £8,113 and 30 pence. What happened?
So I think looking back, I think there was a lot of football coupons back in those early days. So the betting historically goes back a long, long time. You were right. It's pretty much roughly my 20th kind of anniversary in terms of being involved in betting-related activities. The syndicates I'm in run back to around the turn of 2019, 2020, 2021. The early days were a lot of football coupons, and it probably wasn't put into a formal syndicate into the most recent years. So it was a bit sporadic. There was probably a little bit of variance involved in those early years. You'll also see in more recent years that the volume of EV has gone up dramatically.
Yeah.
And there's a kind of direct correlation that the profit has gone up dramatically as the EV has gone up quite dramatically. Those first couple of years, it was quite minimal EV until the syndicate was really set in stone and things were done a bit more professionally. But I suppose as the years have kind of gone by, more and more things have gone into the pot, and it's probably smoothed that variance out because you've got things like your golf, your combo bets, your darts bets, various exchange special bets, etc. There's a few nice golf wins in there as well. And it's kind of all come together when the collection of strategies have all been put together. That's where the EVs boomed and also the profits boomed dramatically.
It's that old adage, if you put your eggs all into one basket, then you're at the mercy of a very limited amount of variance from that strategy. But if you're maintaining 6, 7 strategies, then it's okay if one of them is underperforming, right?
Yeah. And as well, I think in those early days, certain work would have been kept out of a syndicate recording because it was often more trouble to record the EV that you had than it was in terms of getting a record. So, for example, I'm thinking back in terms of back in those early days there that we're referring to, where the profit was a bit lower. There were things involved such as like Cheltenham Festival, where you would Dutch the first race of Cheltenham at William Hill, and you could be on 12, 18 horses, every single horse in the field, and be making some serious money. That was obviously left out of that kind of syndicate there because the time and the maths involved probably don't really fit in with the recording of a syndicate in that nature. And I think as well, in terms of the more recent profit figures, as the EV's gone up, it's at times because the nature of the bets has been a bit more complicated. So you've got things like combination bets and some bets where calculated EV is a little bit more technical, and you might have a slight difference of opinion between some people. And so sometimes it's easier to go with a figure, which I personally go for a slightly pessimistic figure rather than an optimistic figure. And spending maybe 2 minutes on the EV record than spending 20 minutes on a detailed calculation. Don't get me wrong, you need that sometimes to get an accurate record and know what you're doing in the future, but sometimes it's easier to get a rough figure and move on.
Yeah, I wanted to let's talk about your calculation of the EV then. And by the way, you say you increased the EV, you still were hitting £50,000 of EV in 2020 from minus £8,000 profit. So £58,000 under EV and in the negative stings. That also incidentally coincided with lockdown, a lot of fundamental changes in the frequency of cards and corners, and when the bookmakers are offering overs, if you're not hitting those unders and you're primarily hitting overs, those years were real stingers. They were stingers for us over at BookieBashing. Looks like stingers for you as well. But I want to ask you about this EV, and I'm going to give you an example. You joked recently that I placed a bet on the exchange. It was something that I think Denise had made a super boost out of at Bet365. I think it was like Voltamarty to get a shot on target, maybe with Anthony Gordon. I don't remember the exact bet, but I backed it because I made it 110% EV using my calculators that are available to everyone at BookieBashing.net. I just pulled up my bet builder, 110%, that'll do me. But what you did is you laid that bet. So I'm backing it, you're laying it, and you joked that you probably laid me. And I think the reason you laid it was pre-team news, and you were acutely aware that one of those two players was going to start on the bench and come on late in the match. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So, funnily enough, this historically goes back to what I started doing 20 years ago, but back when I was a student at university. So, I'll give you a little history trip if you want it quickly before I kind of go on to the exact nature of this one. But I first started betting on Betfair in around about 2019 in my student accommodation. And back then it was an absolute layers paradise.
2009.
Sorry, 2000.
2009, yeah.
Sorry, I was 19, so it's 2005. Sorry, I'm getting my age and the year mixed up. It was 2005. And it was an absolute layers paradise back then in terms of the markets were players to score, players to get a card. Things like stats hadn't really been incorporated into pricing, and people were very much viewing it as you back something based on perception rather than any kind of theory or stats behind it. And I remember kind of like you could lay goal scorers who would maybe have a 25%, 30% chance of scoring at evens, 2.5, 2.3. Some of the, looking back now, historically, some of the prices you were getting to lay was absolutely bonkers. And I also had a period where I would keep an eye on team news on Twitter, or for La Liga, you could do it on things like Marca, the Spanish website. And you would get lineups quite early, and there were people still trying to back players that were subs at very low prices. And yeah, when I was a student, I would spend quite a lot of time searching team news, lineups, and I would kind of lay those that I knew weren't playing or unlikely to play. And obviously, when that's confirmed, you get a very decent EV bet. Mm-hmm. And that kind of ties into this really. So I know a lot of bets now on the exchanges kind of come with the provision that it's players to start only, but there are still some.
Yeah, that's changed this year,
yeah,
hasn't it? Which is maybe a bit of a shame.
Yeah, but there are still some where that kind of condition doesn't come with it. So
I think I've noticed it's more when it's multiple players. So when it's multiple players, there's still the bets live if one of them starts.
Yeah. But you're right. So for that particular bet where Voltimeda, I think you might be right. It might have been Voltimeda and Gordon to have a shot on target. I think I saw fairly early that Voltimeda wasn't starting. Mm-hmm. But there was still quite a bit of money for people trying to back him and Gordon to have a shot on target. So it seemed quite a decent lay price for me. And I think you might have mentioned it earlier in the day. So I thought it was worth a quick joke with you as to whether you maybe left it up too long and it might have been me that took your money.
Yeah, I think it probably was. I mean, I was quite guilty that day, and I am guilty a lot of the time that I don't do my research. I do tell people if you're not confident, you have two options. You wait until team news or you accept the risk before team news. And then I accepted the risk. I was kind of a little bit arrogant, I think, thinking Anthony and Gordon and Voltimeda are definitely going to start without doing any research myself. Do you when you do a lot of these bets, do you find that more of the value is on the back or the lay or 50-50? What do you reckon?
I think I would roughly say 80% of the value is on the back, 20% to the lay. Definitely the majority I'm backing rather than laying.
Are you talking every market or specifically these enhanced boosts that are up on the exchanges?
The enhanced ones really, outside of that, in normal markets, it's probably fairly rare that there's a decent value lay that I'm seeing. That's certainly flipped on its head over the years as markets have kind of become more and more competitive and based on data and accurate research. But on the outside markets, it's definitely the majority that are being backed rather than laid.
Okay, interesting. I think occasionally I see the other side, but I'm looking mostly at player markets when that. So perhaps the goals markets, which I spend a little bit less time staring at. The efficiencies on the other side.
Yeah, I know. If I mean, it has altered recently, but if Betfair didn't have a premium charge involved in the last few years, then I would have absolutely been quite a consistent layer of quite a lot of players on the to score market and the first goal scorer market, which I know fits in with your stats and research as well, Tom. You did your report a few weeks ago, I think, of last season's value player bets. I think the majority of those are lay bets, weren't they?
For anytime goal scorer, I'm not going to do it off the top of my head. It was more than the majority value was lay, but for first goal scorer, it's not even close. It's like something like 15% were value backs, 85% were value lays. I can understand that because I think there's many more recreational players that will just back at 10-1 than there are gonna lay at that price, aren't there?
I actually know someone as well that for about 15 years, only for fairly small stakes, but he has laid every single player on every single game to score, first goal scorer, shown a card, and he's not even factored in any particular value price. He just kind of he's put bets up to be taken, and he just kind of took whatever the line ends up, and he's made a consistent profit every year for about 15 years.
I love that. I absolutely love that, and I'm sure that's one of those things where I think it's a little bit like the each way betting in horses. It's you can do it blindly, but of course, if you optimize, perhaps with a bit of data, tools, strategy, you know, you might be running, you can turn your 1-2% return on investment into, I mean, I don't know what he was making, but I'm absolutely sure that sounds like a legitimate strategy, and you can get yourself up to 10, 20, 30 with a bit of patience. What about corners, cards, those kind of markers?
Yeah, so I think there probably is some decent value in the corners and cards. It's only maybe something I've been looking at more recently, using some of the tools on BookieBashing. So the coupon tracker, where you can type in your own lines. Some of the more rarer markets and the more alternate numbers that you might not normally look at often show a bit more value. And there are some bookmakers which often the same ones that seem to have slightly higher prices on certain high numbers.
Which bookmakers are you looking at there?
It's, without giving away too much.
Okay.
It's one of the top 5 bookmakers.
Yeah. I think I know which one you're talking about. And if you don't want to give away the edge, I can understand that. But there is one actually. This particular bookmaker, I was having a conversation with a newcomer, and they were saying, I can't believe that the lines at BookieBashing are accurate, because this particular bookmaker is so large, their lines would be accurate. It's pretty amazing to find that one of the top 5 bookmakers, the lines can be shocking, can't they? You know, just because they're offering it doesn't mean that it's not value for us.
No, sometimes it's just worth maybe sometimes as well, like not just on that market, on any market, just having a bit of a look at the comparisons between different bookmakers. And just because someone maybe is one of the best well-known bookmakers doesn't mean that they're always correct. Especially when it's on kind of a smaller subsidiary market, which maybe not get as much attention as things like goal scorers and outright match odds. If there's less people looking at those, they're more likely to be out of line.
That's always a nice little verification check. Sometimes you see something that's 150, 160% EV. And from an operator service point of view, we're often asked, this cannot be right. Well, simply go and look elsewhere. If the entire market is backable at 150% EV, there is probably something going on that's not trustworthy with the input data. But very often, and I'm thinking Skybet, no, it was Paddy Power. It was for a particular player who was a defender for Crystal Palace to get 2+ fouls. The whole market was like 4-6, maybe 8-11. And then you looked at Skybet and they were 7-4, and you looked at Paddy Power and they were 3-1, and Paddy Power had their super sub concession. So the argument at the time was, well, it cannot be possible that this is a value bet because Paddy Power have got a super sub concession. But the thing is, they were twice the price of everyone else was odds on, and they were 3-1. So they just got it wrong, quite simply. I don't know if that would qualify as a palp or not, but
well, I remember about 15 years ago, and this is when it was a lot easier to use online bookmakers, and they wouldn't kind of limit you after 1 or 2 bets. It was a bit of more of an open market back then. But about 15 years ago, I had a full season where Skybet were consistently too high on the win both halves markets and the scoring both half markets.
Yeah, I remember that. I do, yeah.
They would often be something like 5-2, where everyone else was around about 6-4, 7-4, consistently out of line. And I think I must have got hundreds of bets on that market until I finally lost my account with Skybet. But that kind of comparison we were talking about was evident back then when you kind of compared it with a few other bookmakers. But that's absolutely the case now as well. So there's nothing wrong with doing a bit of research purely for your own confidence. If you find something good, do a comparison with other bookmakers, because there often is, on these particular bets we're talking about now, you might well find something that's 7-2 and the next best price might be 5-2 or lower. So you can gain a lot of confidence from that.
And there won't be a exchange market, because if there is, then they're not going to be 7-2. That's often their first starting point of where they're cutting odds and things like that. So your second thing is, just go and look elsewhere. Just go and look what another bookmaker is doing. And then the question comes: you don't have access to that Skybet account. You don't have access to a lot of soft online bookmakers, but you do have to get down enough volume to £118,320 and 88 pence EV so far this year. What are your tricks for getting enough volume down to make this worthwhile?
I think if you look in the right places, there is a lot of opportunity out there. I think it helps the fact now that over the years I've built up a very sizable betting balance. Excuse me. So my pot is big enough to allow me to have confidence to put a lot of money down pretty much every day of the week now, especially on the exchanges. So I'm talking BetDAC, Matchbook, Smarkets. Thankfully, I built up decent balances in those before it became difficult to get money into.
Yeah, because you can't withdraw now. Unfortunately, you're gonna have to leave.
Yeah. There is that problem, yeah. Trying to get 30, 40, 50 grand into one of those all in one now would be an absolute nightmare.
Yeah. No, absolute nightmare. Which again is frustrating for a lucky 15. If you were on for, I mean, I was on for £250,000 payout a couple of months ago. The £500,000 payout would have been nice to have hedged some of that fourth horse, but how do I get 100,000 into a betting exchange? I just can't.
Yeah, exactly. And also, going back to syndicates and the high volume of EV that's been incurred over the years, it's probably worth noting that quite a sizable amount of that will have come from lucky 15s that have been kind of burned through over and over again. Because that's kind of been, I mean, I don't do as many of those now, but over the years, it's kind of been a very, very easy way of getting money down in shops without any real question or problem. And with the concessions available as well in certain shops, that I can't imagine the amount of EV that we've been able to get down in shops from that. That's probably up there with the biggest kind of supply of EV and profit that there's been historically over the years.
Yeah, it still is. I mean, there's plenty out there. Not yesterday. It was very rainy and there were only about 5 races throughout the entire day. But it was a Monday in November. But if you want to just like focus on EV, then lucky 15s in shops, you know, they can be churned through at quite a rate. Can I ask then, you're hitting the shops, you're hitting the exchanges, you've got quite a wide portfolio, it sounds like, in terms of not so much lucky 15s just now. You've been doing golf doubles longer than I know anyone has been doing them, to tell you the truth. If I can just drill into there a little bit. Any big wins? Has this been a good year? Or any big wins from previous years that stand to your memory?
I think this has been the biggest year. Maybe the last 2 or 3 years, it's been fairly steady with a lot of decent kind of place.
Yeah. Talking about EV, the annoying thing about golf is that you've only got one set of doubles a week, but the EV that you can get on those places are unreal, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. EV wise, yeah, and I think EV wise, that's certainly got a lot higher this year as the EV available on 2 tournaments a week has naturally increased. And I think it's also maybe been slightly easier this year to get bets down on doubles a bit more easily.
Why is that?
Well, I think, for example, with your videos, doing it at Betfred and on the SSBTs, I don't think historically, or I'm trying to think back to when I kind of started doing these bets, but I'm not sure they were always available to put into doubles. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tom. I'm trying to think back accurately here, but even golf tournament-wise at Betfred, I think they used to have their tournaments on individual coupons. Does that ring a bell?
I mean, I know a lot of there was a while where the only way to get a price was to ask over the counter.
Yeah.
And you could stick them into doubles using a little bet slip like that, but it was time consuming.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously having 2 tournaments a week effectively on the same coupon now, where you can tick a box for a player on one side and tick a box for a player on the side and combine it as a double at the bottom. It just makes the whole process a lot smoother and a lot easier rather than writing out individual bet slips. So that's definitely been a factor. And being able to kind of walk into a shop and use an SSBT and do a manual double like that has also made things far easier. Because I think it's worth just kind of noting that time is money when you're out doing short bets on SSBTs. You're missing out on other things, and if you end up spending hours and hours on that, you have to kind of consider what else you might be missing out on. So it's all about trying to make the strategies that work for you and use your spare time wisely, I suppose.
Biggest win on the doubles this year, then?
I think there's been two 5-figure wins. I want to say maybe roughly 24,000 win and a 15,000 win.
Okay, both win-wins, or was one of those a place?
No, they were both win-win.
Okay.
There might have also been a couple of times where there's been a couple of holidays involved and we've missed out on a couple of decent weeks, but that's just the way it goes sometimes. But there's also been plenty of decent place wins coming there, but those two particular weeks were the big ones in terms of getting the outright win-win. And the first one actually, we had first and also second and second.
Oh, there we go.
It was quite nice, not just having the players, but having a bit of confidence that towards the end of both tournaments, you had the choice of two players.
Not much of a sweat on Sunday night, that one for you.
And I think, I'm trying to think back to the players that won now, but I think
was that the week that Connor Syme won at like 200 to 1?
It could have been. I'm trying to think of the players involved in both tournaments, but on the one where we had our biggest win, which was maybe 24,000, the guy in first, I want to say, was about 40 to 1. The guy in second was about 100 to 1.
Right.
So it would have been well over 50 grand, I think, if it had been the other way around. But we'll take it.
50 grand's a limit at Betfred. Any idea what it is? I think it's $250,000 over. I keep meaning to look at Ladbrokes, but I'm always like, it's a nice problem to have if I ever come across it.
Yeah, it's definitely six figures. I think it's more than Betfred. Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned the coupon tool earlier. I want to sort of circle back to that. This is at BookieBashing. This is different to the coupon tracker. The coupon tracker is something that we monitor markets in. We monitor shop coupons at Betfred and William Hill. But the coupon tool is a Bet Builder coupon tool. If you like, that mimics the coupon in a shop where you can select any market you want and you can select any games that you want. Now, it's not a tool that a lot of people use. It's relatively advanced. But what is it that you get out of using that tool?
I think there's two main benefits. So number one is it's easy to load up a particular market. So you can do an individual comparison between the fair price and the outcome that you're looking at. So you've literally got both on the screen. You can also compare that to a number of bookmakers.
Give me an example of that. Sorry, Harry.
So you might be looking at a particular line of corners or cards. So you might type in a certain game to have over 9.5 corners, for example. You can populate essentially in the tool. You can get, I don't know, the 10 Premier League games this weekend, and it'll give you the fair price on all of those. So you've essentially got a method of then putting in the odds that are available at a particular bookmaker or the highest odds available at a particular bookmaker, and you can see if some of the lines are out of place. Particularly if you found a particular bookmaker on a certain line is often out of place, you kind of know where to look. So there's the time involvement that is saved there from a time analysis point of view, which is helpful to see. There's also the fact that if you save that in the tool, it's in there doing its thing for you in the background. So if any lines are moving up and down, or there's some circumstances around certain games that have developed over time, it will still be in there in that tool, and it will then show you if certain lines have moved, and you can then develop a value bet that way. So I'm thinking, for example, particularly around cup games, there might be certain teams that end up resting players unexpectedly in cup games. So if you've got a line in there for FA Cup third round, for example, you might have a certain market and a certain line in there that will often move around quite dramatically for FA Cup third round when teams are resting star players, etc. So those lines can move quite a lot. And if you kind of save those precedents in there already, and you then go back and look at team news time or half an hour before kickoff, you'll often see that quite a lot of value has popped up nearer the time of the event.
Yeah, the advantage is being able to monitor at scale, but very, very quickly. And as you say, lots of things happen. FA Cup round 3, team news, 2 p.m. on a Saturday. And if you can just quickly identify, right, I've got my list of fair odds here. It's almost like having a sniper rifle and going, these bookmakers are value in these particular lines, and you can just quickly go and run and get them. So good stuff, Bet Builder coupon tool. Now, over the last 12 months, I want to talk about variance and volatility, especially when you are, £200,000 or more in profit over a year. By the way, keep on running this hot. This is the 3rd consecutive year you're running hotter than EV. Having said that, you're 3 consecutive years behind that, you're running under EV. So maybe it was your time to catch a heater.
On that point, Tom. On the other syndicate that I've been involved in for a long time, I don't know if you want exact numbers, but I looked at this earlier. The profit versus the EV. The profit is 1.431 million. The EV is 1.421 million.
Sorry, say that again. So profit 1.41.
1.431.
1.431 and EV
1.421.
Well, I mean,
I thought it was extraordinary. Absolutely unbelievable how close those were.
That is actually extraordinary. That's £10,000 under. The EV's £10,000, or you're running hot by 10,000 quid, basically, over 1.43 million. I mean, losing run coming up then.
Well, since I last spoke to you, Tom, I won't lie. There's the last 7 days have probably been the worst 7 days I've had in a while. But it pales into insignificance when you scale back and look at it from a broader view.
I think I did actually. I hate doing this because I've been doing it for long enough that exercises like this are futile. But I went and counted how many individual evens bets I've had that I've lost in a row. And I think I'm on like 8 in a row. So that's 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256. Should only happen once every 256 times. Just felt like everything's lost in the last week. And also at Bookie Bashing Towers, when we go through these periods where a lot of unders essentially win, but more people are on overs, we do get feedback coming into us saying, are the fair odds wrong? Are they right? Listen, we haven't changed a lot of the models in years, so the last 7 days can hurt. Do you see, well, what would your advice be to newcomers that come in, they start doing this, and we experience something like what we've experienced in the last 7 to 10 days?
I think it's like what you've often warned about, Tom. I know that when people have joined your service, you've kind of been very keen to push that they know what they're getting into rather than just getting people to sign up. It's obviously very important that people have a bit of experience before they get into something like that, and they understand betting and a bankroll.
A lot of people say they have experience, and when you quiz them on it, they mean matched betting experience. And you kind of, I don't want to roll my eyes because I understand the desire of a lot of these people to move, sort of, if you like, promote themselves from match betting. But it's nothing like it, because in match betting, you're either risk-free or you're losing very small amounts of money to win a lot. It's a completely different kettle of fish when you are exposed to the amount of volatility that exists in sports betting.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's a lot easier to say when you've had a number of years experience, because when I look at a losing run now, I don't actually even look at it. I only looked at this week because someone else had mentioned it. So until that point, I wasn't actually aware of the kind of scale of the last week being so poor.
I think I knew I was annoyed, but I wasn't quite sure how annoyed I was. But
but I think for anyone that's coming into it, obviously they've got to have that betting pot very much distinguished from their own money, their kids' savings, that kind of thing. It sounds obvious, but there probably are some people that don't factor that in enough.
No, you're right there. It's fun money, it's investing money, and you have to be able to lose a sizable chunk of your bankroll, otherwise it's going to kill you this game.
Yeah, the way I treat it now is very much as treat it like a business. This is the business account, and the other account is the day-to-day money account. It's very much treated like a black and white operation. So I don't get high when the big wins come, and I don't get low really when the losses come up.
Yeah, that's
quite hard
important
to
because
control for some people.
If you get very excited at a big win, you've been doing this long enough that you know that long losing run is just around the corner now. You know.
Yeah, and I'm absolutely aware. Given the last 3 years I've had that, I'm very much due a poor losing run. It's only right that variance will catch up on me at some point. And I've had some rough spells over the years. I want to say the start of the year last year or the start of the year 2023 was, I think, I want to say January 2023 was quite brutal. And then it kind of just flew up out of control. And a lot of my betting, I quite like betting during big tournaments, World Cups, Euros. I often really look forward to those tournaments coming around. Not because I like football, I do, but purely from a betting point of view and the opportunities that brings. But
why?
I think there's the daily games. You've got 4 or 5 games a day in various different markets open, and there's a lot of enhanced specials available on those, but there's also various sub-markets that certain bookmakers are maybe not kind of caught up on in terms of what correct prices are for that, which is always fun as a historical longer-term bet in those tournaments. I enjoy those.
You also have the fact that if it's a Saudi, who did Saudi Arabia beat? Was it Argentina?
Yep.
I think it was Argentina. Now, just imagine that from a model-making perspective. They've never played each other. They don't play. The opposition they play are vastly different. How do you end up assigning an XG to an Argentina versus a Saudi Arabia? It's not that it's easy when it's Arsenal versus Manchester City in the Premiership, but you have a lot of information that you're able to put into your model. What on earth do you put into your model for Saudi Arabia or Argentina?
Yeah, I don't think I know where to start with that, actually, Tom. You probably know more than me.
But that's when you have these things where there's less confidence, and with less confidence, you have the ability to attract higher ROI. As we come through to the end of this week, we've got the World Cup qualifiers, and I'm always intrigued by the games such as who are Liechtenstein playing? Liechtenstein are playing Wales, Luxembourg are playing Germany, Czech Republic are playing Gibraltar. I love these games. I really do. I think there's opportunities galore. Certainly opportunities, because the difference between the Faroe Islands having an XG of 0.05 and 0.1 is massive in terms of what happens to win and both teams to score, win both halves and things like that. I mean, obviously the Faroe Islands will never win both halves, but we're looking at Croatia here on that side of the things. But even the derivative markets, your corners, your cards, things like that, those kind of games are really, really lucrative simply because the markets themselves don't know what to do. And if you want to sort of look at the opposite side of the coin, I tend to go away during the Champions League final. I really do. I tend to not bother even looking at it, certainly not bother betting on it, because the markets are shaped to within an inch of their lives.
Yeah, those games are interesting you're talking about, with the likes of Luxembourg and Gibraltar, etc. It's one of those things I meant to look at for a long time but never got around to, in terms of how often those teams do actually score a goal against the big teams. Do you remember San Marino once scored first against England back in that qualifier?
Yes, I do.
In the day.
Yeah.
But since then, it must be very, very rare that England have kind of actually conceded a goal against those minnows. And you're right about, in terms of the difficulty in modelling the win both halves, the corners, but also things like win to nil and the match odds of both teams to score. Very, very much a feeling. But looking at prices that have been around more recently, I wouldn't be surprised if there's quite a lot of value on the team win to nil. That's just a hunch, just a feeling based
on the favourite win to nil or the underdog win to nil.
Yeah, on the favourite win to nil. Yeah. So if you've got I don't know, Germany versus Luxembourg. I've not looked at prices for this week's games, but historically it feels like that would always be relatively high. I don't know if that's kind of a natural bias because bookmakers and punters might quite like the idea of an underdog scoring a goal, or people generally as a punter rather than a professional will always try and back goals and both teams to score.
Of course. Things to happen is always a very recreational punter favourite, 99% of combo bets are goals to happen, cards to happen, corners to happen. There's very few it's going to end up 0-0 with no corners, but a 0-0 with no corners happens more often than you think, and the bookmakers love it. They absolutely love it when a 0-0 happens, and a little bit the same as, when Rory McIlroy wins a golf tournament, recreational punters will win, bookmakers will lose, profitable professional punters will lose as well, because none of us are ever on Rory McIlroy. Same with, 0-0s that should be the domain where bookmakers win and we win as well. But there's a bit of effort that goes into finding where the value exists. And so I think favourite to win to nil is quite a decent market in those games.
It goes back as well to what we were saying before about historically lays potentially being more value across the board. Obviously, that's not quite the same as it would be now. But in terms of maybe the value of the bookmakers, you're probably right. It probably is more often just something not to happen rather than to happen. The only downside is if you love sport, you sometimes don't want to watch a game of football where you've got bets on things not to happen. It's not the most enjoyable thing, is it? It's best to turn the telly off and go for a walk instead.
Yeah, exactly that. So circling back to the newcomers coming in, we talked about one tip for them would be it's fun money. Don't be scared to lose it, and losing runs can go on for way longer than you think. Now, the obvious starting point for a lot of people coming into value betting, profitable betting, is lucky 15s. That's 4 value horses each way in a lucky 15. So you're not allowed that as an answer because it's too obvious. If we're not looking at lucky 15s, what would be your top 4 areas of value betting, profitable betting that you might look at if you don't have the experience of if you're coming into this as a newcomer?
I think even if you're coming in as a newcomer, Tom, you want to probably be as varied as you possibly can. That was probably kind of the point right from the outset. And for example, you also mentioned how in 2020, the COVID impacts of the lack of fans in the stadium killed a lot of lines for goals and corners, etc. Now that's quite a rare occurrence, but it's also probably backs up the idea of having a varied portfolio, because if that was the only thing you were betting on during that time, it would have been quite a stinger. So I do think that's a good point. So I think in terms of the lucky 15s are a good staple there.
On that, and I'll circle back to the end of your answer. There's this thing. One of our old syndicate members told me that if you ever look at any tipster's betting graph, profit loss graph, always starts with a win. Like, no tipster ever starts with a losing run at the beginning. Of course they don't, because it's selective. They can choose when they're going to start reporting on it. We started logging the combo bets results in March 2020. March 2020, Harry! Like, right before lockdown. And it just did that. And it was game after game after game. You were getting, like, 0 cards and 1 corner in every game. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
So
you do also, I think it's only human nature to have a bit of recency bias in your mind, because I remember going back to when our syndicate started, it was the start of the year 2019. Excuse me. And we did a number of FA Cup third round coupon bets on the 4th of January, on 5th of January weekend. And they returned £28,000 in different trebles, doubles, etc.
Doncaster won, Grimsby won at 8-1. I remember the weekend. I mean, it was three things happened at the same time. One, there was mega value. There's not always mega value, but there was mega value, and it was held that critically. And two, all the mega value was big prices. The value wasn't at even money. It was at 5-1, 6-1, 7-1, 8-1. And three, they won. Of course, you can have 1 and 2. Doesn't have to win, but they all won. Yeah, we took them to the cleaners that weekend.
Yeah, it does. Don't get me wrong, it does help when you first start a journey or start a new syndicate to have a nice win because you've got that buffer for a good while.
Yeah.
And it gives you that confidence to pile into different other strategies and put money down without really giving it too much of a second thought or concern.
Although I was in a syndicate and we just started and we got off to such an incredible... We all put in £2,000, 5 of us, and we just started. And then, like, 2 weeks in, we're 10,000 up. So we've turned 10,000 to 20,000 in 2 weeks. One of the guys had no experience in profitable betting. We just kind of persuaded him to join us because he was an old university friend. Couldn't believe it. He was so happy. He took the money and he went on a really expensive weekend with his girlfriend and lavished gifts on her in a fancy hotel. And the rest of us are like, oh, don't do that. Because we're just about to go on a losing run and you're going to need that. And that's what happened. We went on the losing run and all of a sudden he didn't have the buffer of that win. And he ended up quitting early. And I felt really bad. Of course, you can't force someone to stay in a syndicate winning and losing money if they're not comfortable. So he quit. What happened just after he quit? Mega winning run again. I mean, it's just, and it's brutal. It wasn't fun. It wasn't fun not to share that with him. So it's very important that it is for sure. So
I think as well, Tom, if you're getting into something, like I said before, if you're not prepared to do a few hundred or even a few thousand bets and take a conclusion from that, then it probably isn't for you. This is equally about building up EV as it is about building up profit. The EV, it sounds obvious, the EV figure is more important than the profit until you scale back probably quite a few years. So it needs to be money that you are prepared to lose and that money that you don't need when you're starting out with. But you also need to be able to have the confidence to reflect on a number of years or a number of months rather than, I don't know, 10 bets, 100 bets. It has to be more. You can't conclude anything from a small sample of bets. It's irrelevant.
Two things out of that. The EV being important, that's kind of why I think I ironically had a little tagline, betting at 100.1% and above. And I guess if you didn't realize that I was being ironic, you might take that as a rule of thumb. It's almost pointless taking a bet at 100.5% EV. Now, occasionally I'll want to have a bet because I want to have interest in the thing, and I really find sport difficult to be interested in if I don't have some sort of financial reward in it. And so I'll have a bet at 100.5%, but I might as well, I'll also have a bet at 99.5%. And those two figures in my head aren't that different. It's throwaway money. It's money that should return pretty much exactly the stake in the long run. If you want to be efficient, then filtering by high EV is the way forward, number one. And also making sure that when we're getting very high EV, 120, 130% and higher, we're Kelly staking. We're staking higher. Now, you don't have to be precise Kelly formula. You just need to make sure that you're staking higher at 150% EV to return more money than you are at 110% EV. It is very important. It does optimize your returns. So that's the number one. And EV is very, very important. And you can almost close your eyes to the profit and just say this game is about collecting as much EV as possible. I know there's some syndicates out there that actually they split the returns to the syndicate members based on EV bet on, and so that's quite a good incentive. That's like, don't turn up here with your 100.1%. Nobody cares. It's like, get in there with your 120 and bet higher. And even if you're on your own, think about it like that. I'm being rewarded by the amount of EV that I take. So dismiss 100.2%, go big as you can when you see that 150% opportunity. And that's the first thing. And then the second thing is, volume can be unreal. The losing runs can go on for so long. Recently, we had a new member. They had 130 bets. I had a look at their betting history. I tend not to when it's this small. That's the first thing. The second thing is they were laddering up. So within that 130 bets, you'd have 6 bets on corners in the same game, over 3, over 4, over 5, over 6, over 7, over 8. So if there's 2 corners for that team, all 6 bets lose. So that's exactly the same bet, I'm afraid. And they were 20% Kelly staking each time, meaning over those 6 bets, they were 120% Kelly staking over 50 or so bets. Now, would you be surprised to hear that this person was massively down over that betting profile?
Not at all, and it links back to my own more negative run in the last week or so. And
it was the same time as well.
Yeah, it would have also, no doubt, when I placed a few bets, a lot of those bets that I've lost have also been essentially combinations of outcomes within the same game.
Yeah.
So, for example, I might have had both teams to score and over 2.5 shots on target bet, but on the same game there might have been certain plays, so a shot on target, for example, and
yeah, exactly.
There's obviously a direct parallel between those two outcomes.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take, if like I said, if you've got those certain bets laddered together and for a small number of games, it doesn't take that much really to end up having that kind of losing run. But that's why you've really got to be careful that you are staking properly and not interweaving those same kind of bets on the same game.
Mm-hmm. It's difficult. It's difficult to actually keep your eye on how much correlation you have. Same with coupons, you can often have the same very odd high football team in the same coupon over and over again. You say, bloody hell, I'm overstaking on them. They lost, and I didn't realize how much that took me down. But at the same time, don't be scared of being on the same outcome twice. Just make sure that you accept the risk when you're laddering up like that.
I think it's probably something more important in your early days is a better doing this kind of thing, because I think when you've done it for a few years and you've built up that kind of betting pot, the game is often about trying to get down as much money as possible, and you're often not able to get down as much as you would like.
Exactly that. Yeah.
So if there are maybe 2 or 3 bets that do link certain outcomes, you're more than happy to try and get down as much as possible on those, because there's only a certain amount of money that's available to put down. Number one, and number two, if it all fits within your betting pot amount and your Kelly stakes, then it's absolutely fine to put those bets together.
Yeah. I'm just going to finish off with a quote, and this quote says, it was from an old member who said, my basic point is it's been repeatedly emphasized over and over again that you need to cap the number of people who are value betting. With no warning, the idea has shifted to you doing stupid videos to recruit as many people as possible. It is no coincidence that there has been no value in any sport in the last couple of weeks. Everything on all the coupons is getting cut so quickly, and this game is finally over. You have killed it, and you need to take responsibility for that. That was posted on our Discord in 2018. Since then, you've made £1 million. So congratulations for making £1 million when the game is over, Harry. Year after year and month after month, I do hear that this is over. And I won't lie, I raised an eyebrow when the backbone of our service, our horse racing tracker, ended up getting cloned by one community, a second community, now a third community. And imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. But in the back of my mind, I go, well, it's a good thing that we have a diverse portfolio going on, because sooner or later, someone will see you making money out of strategy A, and everyone will do it, and there'll be less money for the value bettors at the top of the pyramid. Do you think that the end is nigh and value betting, profitable betting is come to an end, or are you optimistic about the future?
I think after the last 20 years, it's hard not to be optimistic. And I think if we're all honest, we probably all had a spell at some point where we thought, what's going to be next. Is this particular thing going to fizzle out, and is there anything new kind of going to be there to replace it? Having done it for 20 years, there always has been something new come along to replace what's gone before. I just think back at some of the historical things that we had available, things like.
Oh, don't do it!
Oh, it's great.
Because
I love
how much we left on the table back then.
I love reminiscing though, Tom, but I think it's always a reminder. Even things like the online casinos, and then you've got like Try Again at William Hill and Sharpshooter at Ladbrokes, and all those things that were there over the years. When one of those things has ended, great sports offers as well, obviously. When one of those things has ended, there's always probably been a little bit of reflection in terms of could things have been done differently? Was there anything that could have made it last a bit longer? Will something kind of come along in the future to be as good? It always has. This is my, for example, 20th year betting. It always has. The EV now is the highest it's ever been. The opportunities, I would say, are in different places now, but they are as good as they've ever been. We don't know what's in the future, but all the tools and the trackers on BookieBashing show what is available to everyone. But one thing I would also say is that the tools are there for people to do their own lines and their own research. Don't be afraid to do that, because there might also be various edges out there that a little bit of research and a little bit of playing with the certain tools on there, you might find something yourself that maybe not so many people are aware of. So it's about putting the time in as well, not just using the lines that are available, but doing a bit of research yourself and see what you can find.
So it was interesting. I do talk to people and they say, I've got a really, really, really good edge, and I use your tools to monitor and find the value. And I go, what is it? I say, I'm not telling you. I'd love to know, but I absolutely get it, because there are some of these smaller markets. If more liquidity came into them, the bookmaker cuts them, the edge goes away, and sometimes you have to keep those things to yourself. I echo exactly what you said there. One of the things that I learned a long time ago is the only thing I'm confident about in the future is that in 2 years' time, I will not be doing the same sports betting edge as I am just now. I know it will change between now and then. And often some people will ask me, do you worry that edge XYZ is going to die? No. In fact, I accept that if it's very profitable, it has to. But by then I'll have moved on and I'm doing something else.